Hey everyone, did you know that over 90% of you watching right now haven't hit that subscribe button? If you enjoy our content, take a second to subscribe. It's free and it really helps us keep bringing you great stories every day. I never thought my life would turn into something out of a soap opera. I've always been the type of man who liked things calm and predictable. My name's Richard, I'm 48 years old, married to a wonderful woman named Laura, and we live in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in upstate New York. We don't have kids, never could, despite trying for years. And maybe that's why our home has always felt peaceful, if a bit too silent at times. I teach high school history. I mow the lawn every Saturday, and I've been known to grill the best steaks on our street. It was an ordinary Thursday afternoon when the knock came. I'd just gotten home from school, kicked off my shoes, and was about to pour myself a glass of iced tea. Laura was still at work, wrapping up a marketing campaign that had her swamped for the last few weeks. The doorbell rang again, this time more insistently. I walked over, expecting maybe a delivery or someone trying to sell me solar panels. But when I opened the door, my world tilted. A young man stood there, early 20s, tall, with dark hair, and eyes that looked unsettlingly familiar. His clothes were rumpled, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, and for a moment I thought maybe he had the wrong house. But then he spoke. "Are you Richard Carrington?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, can I help you?" He hesitated, looking suddenly nervous. I think I'm your son." The words hit like a punch to the stomach. I stared at him, convinced I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "My name is Daniel. Daniel Harper. My mom's name is Melissa Harper. You dated her in college, at Hudson University. She, she told me last year that you're my father." It was like the air around us disappeared. The name sparked a flicker of recognition. Melissa. She'd been a whirlwind, a beautiful, unpredictable flame during my sophomore year. We'd dated for a few months, maybe more, before it fizzled out. Life moved on. I hadn't thought about her in years. "I think you have the wrong person," I said, but even I could hear the doubt in my voice. He pulled a photo from his bag and handed it to me. It was old, grainy, but unmistakable. Me, in my college dorm, arms around Melissa. The date scribbled on the back confirmed it. March 1997. I stepped back, stunned. "Look, I don't want anything from you," Daniel said quickly. "I just needed to meet you. Mom passed away last year. Cancer. And she told me about you before she died. I've been trying to figure out who I am since." I was still processing when Laura pulled into the driveway. She walked up the path with her work tote in one hand and a puzzled look on her face. "Rich, who's this?" The next few minutes were a blur. I introduced Daniel. I said he claimed to be my son. I saw the look in Laura's eyes shift from confusion to something else. Something like hurt, even if she didn't say it outright. We invited him inside. I could barely sit still. My hands trembled as I poured tea for all of us. Daniel sat awkwardly on the edge of the couch while Laura stayed silent, listening intently. "I don't want to make things weird," Daniel said, "but I had nowhere else to go. I've been staying with a friend, but it's temporary. I'm working part-time, trying to get on my feet. I'm not here to mess up your life." Laura looked at me then, and in that gaze was 100 questions she didn't ask aloud. Later that night, after Daniel had gone to bed in the guest room, we sat in our bedroom in silence. I could feel the tension like a third presence in the room. "Did you know?" she finally asked. "No," I said honestly. "I swear, Laura, Melissa never told me anything. If she'd said something..." Her expression was unreadable. "But you did date her?" "Yes, briefly. It was decades ago." She looked down, fidgeting with her wedding ring. I didn't expect something like this. Not now." Neither did I. I lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. Was it really possible? Could he truly be my son? The next morning, I called in a personal day. Laura left for work early, barely saying goodbye. Daniel was in the kitchen making toast when I came down. He looked exhausted. "I can leave if it's too much," he said softly. "No," I said. "Stay for now. But I think we need to talk more about your mother, about everything." He nodded and told me about growing up in upstate Vermont. His mom had raised him alone, no mention of a father. She worked 2 jobs, struggled with her health toward the end, and before she passed, she gave him a letter and the photo, telling him he had a right to know the truth. She said you were kind, he said, that you probably didn't know. She never wanted to interfere in your life. I couldn't speak. My heart felt heavy with the guilt I didn't know how to process. I kept seeing his eyes, so much like mine when I was his age. We decided to take a DNA test. It seemed like the only way to be sure. While we waited for the results, Daniel stayed in, the guest room. We tried to act normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Laura was distant. I couldn't blame her. Every dinner was quiet, every moment heavy with what wasn't being said. A week later, Laura finally spoke her mind. I can't pretend this doesn't change things, she said. We tried for years, Rich. We cried over miscarriages, we saw specialists, and now this boy shows up and he's your son. It's like a cruel joke. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I didn't cheat on you, Laura, I said, voice low. This happened long before we met. I know, but it still hurts. Do you understand that? I did, or at least I was beginning to. 2 more weeks passed. The DNA results arrived in my inbox on a Monday morning. I stared at them for a long time before opening them. I didn't even need to read the whole report. The percentage was there in bold. 99.97% probability. He was my son. I walked outside and found Daniel on the back porch, sketching in a notebook. His art was good, haunting, full of emotion. I handed him my phone with the results. He read it, his face pale. So it's true, he whispered. I nodded, unable to find the right words. He looked out over the yard. I don't know what I expected. Maybe this was a mistake. It's not a mistake, I said quietly. You're here now. That has to mean something. The days that followed were complicated. Laura withdrew more. I tried to keep things light, but there was always this undercurrent of tension. Daniel was polite, respectful, but I could see he was carrying the weight of something heavy. He didn't want to intrude. And maybe he didn't know how to fit into a life that had no place set aside for him. One night, I came home from work to find the guest room empty. Daniel's bag was gone. A note sat on the bed. Thank you for letting me stay. I didn't want to make things worse between you and your wife. I'll figure things out on my own. I just needed to know who I was. That's enough for me now. I sat on the bed for a long time, reading the note over and over. I wasn't sure if I felt relief or heartbreak. When Laura came home, I showed her the note. She said nothing, just turned away and went upstairs. And for the first time in years, our house felt completely empty. But something had shifted in me. I couldn't just let Daniel disappear. I couldn't erase him from my life, not now. He was my blood, my son. And even if it had taken 2 decades, I owed him more than a bed and a few awkward dinners. I owed him the truth. I owed him a place in my life. I just didn't know how to fix what had already been broken. Or if it could be fixed at all. A week passed. The house felt colder without Daniel in it. Not physically, but in that strange emotional way, like a silence had settled into the corners and refused to leave. Laura and I moved around each other like ghosts. We still had our routines, breakfast at the counter, laundry on Sundays, quiet evenings in front of the television, but it all felt forced, like we were playing roles in a script we didn't believe in anymore. I'd catch her watching me sometimes, like she was studying me, trying to figure out who I was now that this secret from the past had burst through the surface. And the truth was, I wasn't sure who I was either. One evening, I sat alone on the back porch, sipping lukewarm coffee and staring into the yard where Daniel had been sketching just days before. I kept thinking about his note, about the sadness in his eyes, about the way he tried so hard not to ask for anything, even though he had every right to. I couldn't let it end like that. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the number he'd left on the counter the day he arrived. I stared at it for a long time before pressing call. It rang twice before he answered. Hello? Daniel, I said. It's me. A pause. Hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, he said. but his voice lacked any real conviction. I'm staying with a guy I used to work with at a restaurant. It's not permanent, but it's a roof. I'll figure something out. I don't want you to figure it out alone, I said. Another pause. Your wife didn't want me there. I get it. She's hurting, I admitted. This wasn't easy for her, but that's not your fault. And this isn't how I want things to end between us. He didn't say anything, so I continued. I want to meet you, really meet you, not as a stranger on my porch. As my son, I heard a soft breath on the other end. I'd like that, he said finally. We agreed to meet the next day at a quiet diner just outside town. I got there early and sat in a booth by the window, nerves twisted up in my stomach like I was about to take a test I hadn't studied for. When Daniel walked in, wearing the same jacket from before, I felt something tighten in my chest. Pride, maybe, or regret. Or both. He slid into the booth across from me. I ordered coffee, I said. Hope that's okay. Perfect, he nodded. I've been running on gas station stuff for weeks. We talked. Really talked. I asked him about school. He'd done 2 years of community college before money got tight. He wanted to go into graphic design, but had taken a break to work full-time after his mom's illness got worse. He'd been caring for her at the end, alone. He didn't say it with bitterness, just matter of fact, like it had been his duty. She was strong, he said, looking out the window. Tough as nails, but in the end, she was scared, and she wanted me to know where I came from. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I wish she'd told me. He nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. We met again that weekend, then again the next. Always outside the house, always away from Laura. I didn't know how to bring her into it, not yet. Every time I mentioned Daniel, she shut down, changed the subject, or left the room altogether. But Daniel was patient. He never pressured. He just kept showing up, and slowly I started to realize how much of my life had been missing before he arrived. We shared things I hadn't shared with anyone in years, books, music, even jokes that only we found funny. He had my laugh, my hands, even my stubborn streak. One night, I came home to find Laura sitting in the dark, the glow of the TV flickering across her face. I sat beside her and said softly, I've been seeing Daniel. She didn't look at me. I figured. I want you to meet him again. Please, give him a chance. Her eyes finally turned to me, full of hurt and something else. Fear, maybe. I don't know if I can. You don't have to forgive the past, I said. But he's part of my life now, whether we like it or not. For a moment, I thought she would argue, but she just nodded slowly. One dinner. That's all I'm agreeing to. It was a start. We picked a neutral spot, a quiet Italian restaurant where the lights were dim and the tables had just enough distance between them to offer privacy. Daniel arrived early. Laura and I walked in together. Her arm brushed mine as we approached, but she didn't take my hand. Hi, Daniel said, standing awkwardly. Thanks for coming. Laura gave a polite smile, tight and unsure. Hi, Daniel. The meal was slow, polite, a little strained, but Daniel tried. He asked her questions about her work, complimented her earrings, and even offered to split the check. And toward the end, Laura surprised me. She said, You have Richard's eyes. Daniel smiled softly. I get that a lot lately. After dinner, we walked to the parking lot in silence. Laura didn't say much on the ride home, but when we got inside, she turned to me and said, He's a good kid. I nodded, waiting. I'm still not okay, she added. But I don't hate him. It was more than I'd expected. Over the next month, things began to shift. Slowly, cautiously, like someone inching their way across thin ice. Daniel came over for dinner. Once, then twice. He brought flowers for Laura, helped me fix the old bookshelf in the study. He even came to one of my school's open houses to help me set up the display boards. And through it all, Laura thawed. One night, after Daniel left, she said, He reminds me of the child we never had. I didn't know what to say to that. So I took her hand, and we sat together in silence. But life doesn't stay still, and not all wounds heal evenly. It was late one afternoon, just as I got home from school, that I found Daniel sitting on the porch steps, his face pale. He looked up at me with wide, uncertain eyes. "Something's wrong," he said. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, torn at the edges, faded, clearly old. The handwriting was familiar. It was from Melissa. It had been dated 3 years before her death. The letter was addressed to me. "Richard, I don't know if this will ever reach you, but if it does, I want you to know the truth. Daniel is your son. I never told you because I was scared. I didn't want to trap you or make you choose between your future and something you didn't ask for. I've carried the burden of that decision every day. If you're reading this, please don't blame him. Please don't hate me. I did what I thought was best at the time. I just hope someday you'll understand. Melissa." I sat down slowly. My throat was dry. "Where did you find this?" I asked. Daniel shrugged. "I was going through some old boxes I brought with me. It was in a book she used to read a lot." I reread the letter. And then again. And with each reading, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not resentment, but a deep, aching sadness. "She was trying to protect me," I murmured. "Protect both of us." Daniel nodded. "I think so." He looked down at his hands. "I don't want to be a burden, Richard. If this is too much, I can leave again." "No," I said firmly. "No more leaving." I stood and pulled him into a hug. He froze for a second, startled. Then slowly he hugged me back. It was the first time I'd held my son, and in that moment, I knew something had changed forever. Spring came gently. It was the kind of season that reminded me how life never stops moving forward, no matter how tightly you hold on to the past. The trees in our backyard bloomed with soft white flowers, and sunlight spilled into rooms that had felt dim and heavy for months. I wasn't sure if the house was actually brighter, or if something inside me had finally let go of the weight I'd carried for so long. Daniel came by more often now, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to sit on the porch with a sketch pad. He liked the quiet, said it helped him think. Laura, to my surprise, started joining us too. She never said much, but she listened. She asked him about his drawings, complimented his shading. I'd even caught her laughing with him once, a soft laugh, like she'd forgotten for a second why she was supposed to keep her distance. That night, she told me something I didn't expect. "I've been thinking," she said, stirring sugar into her tea. "We could turn the guest room into a proper space for Daniel, if he ever needed to stay longer." I looked at her, unsure I'd heard her right. She noticed and smiled faintly. "It's not a declaration, just a door left open." That door made all the difference. One weekend, I took Daniel to the campus art building. The old place still had its charm. Paint splatters on the stairwell, the smell of linseed oil in the air, and students hauling portfolios bigger than their torsos. We walked through the senior exhibit, and he was quiet at first, studying every piece with care. At one point, he stopped in front of a large canvas with a swirling storm of color, blues and grays crashing together like waves. "This one's good," he said. "Looks like something you do," I said. He smiled, but then his expression turned serious. "I applied here once. Never sent the portfolio. I didn't think I'd get in." "You still can." "I don't have the money or the time. I've got work, bills." "You've got me now," I said. "We'll figure it out." He looked at me, and I saw something behind his eyes, something that hadn't been there before. Hope, maybe, or trust. A small, flickering belief that he wasn't alone anymore. That night, we sat at the kitchen table going over his old drawings. He pulled out a sketch of a woman in a hospital bed, her face tired but calm, and set it gently aside. He didn't say it, but I knew it was his mother. That drawing stayed between us like a moment of silence neither of us needed to explain. Laura watched from the living room, her eyes soft. Time moved forward again. Laura and I started talking more. Really talking. There were still hard days, but something had cracked open between us. We weren't pretending anymore, and maybe that honesty was what we'd needed all along. Then came the surprise. Daniel had entered one of his pieces into a local art show. It was a small event, mostly community artists and students, but it meant something to him. He invited us without pressure, said we didn't have to come if it felt strange. We went, of course. The gallery was a renovated warehouse with string lights hanging from the ceiling and soft music playing in the background. Daniel's piece was near the entrance, an abstract portrait, layered with bold lines and muted colors. It was a face, but not any face in particular. It looked fractured, like it was made of different people's memories. He stood beside it, fidgeting with the sleeve of his jacket. I didn't know if I should submit this one, he admitted when we walked over. It felt too personal. It's beautiful, Laura said. He looked at her, surprised. I mean it, she added. It says a lot without saying anything. I watched the two of them, something shifting quietly between them. No tears, no big speeches, just a growing mutual understanding that neither of them had asked for this situation, but both were trying their best to live in it. Later that night, we stood in the kitchen after Daniel had gone home. I'm proud of him, I said. Laura leaned against the counter. So am I. She looked at me. You're different lately. Different how? Lighter, like you stopped holding your breath. I didn't respond right away. Then I said, I think I stopped being afraid. She walked over, stood in front of me. Of what? Of being a father. She nodded slowly. You're a good one. I felt the truth of it settle in. Not because I'd done everything right, far from it, but because I'd stopped running from the responsibility of connection, of family. Weeks passed. Daniel began working part-time at a local gallery. I helped him apply for a scholarship program. He spent some evenings at our place helping me fix up the garage, which had somehow turned into a shared studio space. One afternoon, while we were organizing supplies, he asked me something I wasn't prepared for. Did you love my mom? The question hung in the air like dust in sunlight. I did, I said, honestly. Not in the way I love Laura, but yes, it was real. We were young and everything felt big and possible. Then life got in the way. He nodded. She always spoke well of you, even when I was little and didn't know who you were. She'd say things like, some people are meant to shape us, not stay with us. I swallowed a lump in my throat. She was wise. She was complicated, he said, but she loved me, fiercely. I can see that in you, I said. Her fire, and maybe a little of my stubbornness, too. He smirked. It's possible. There was one more bridge left to cross. A letter came in the mail from the university a month later. Daniel had been accepted into a continuing studies program with a partial scholarship. He stood in our kitchen, the envelope trembling in his hands. You did it, I said. No, he corrected. We did. Laura came over and hugged him. I watched as he leaned into it, this time without hesitation. That night, over dinner, Daniel brought out a small package. He handed it to me with an awkward smile. I found this in Mom's things, thought you should have it. Inside was a photograph. Old, slightly faded. Melissa and me on the campus lawn laughing. I hadn't seen it in decades. My hair was longer then, her smile bright and full of life. In the corner, someone had scribbled a date. Spring 20-something years ago. I held it in my hands like something fragile. Thank you, I said. Daniel looked at me. I wanted you to know it wasn't all sadness. And somehow that moment tied it all together. Melissa's memory, Daniel's future, Laura's quiet strength. My own past, no longer something I had to bury, but something I could finally accept, learn from, and carry forward. A few weeks later, Daniel moved into a shared student apartment closer to campus. But our house remained his second home. He'd stop by for dinner, bring laundry, borrow tools. And sometimes he'd come just to talk, to sit in the backyard with Laura and me, sipping tea and watching the seasons turn. One night, Laura and I stood at the back door, watching him walk down the path toward his car. She slipped her hand into mine. You really are his father, she said. I nodded, and I'm lucky for it. As the car pulled away, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Life hadn't turned out the way I'd expected. It had surprised me, humbled me, even hurt me. But somehow, in all the uncertainty, it had given me something I didn't even know I needed. Family, not the kind you plan for, but the kind that finds you anyway, and when it does, you welcome it in. You,